Well, I want to talk to you about how we can interpret the short story, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, by James Thurber, in light of how we would write for it with a level 2 critique. So a level 2 critique is going to ask you to give a summary, and then an interpretation, and then an evaluation. I'm not going to touch evaluation in this video. A summary would just be, so I'm going to speak to you about the summary and the interpretation. Now the summary part of it would just be a plot summary. Just articulate again in your writing the basic events of the story. All right. So we know that he drives his wife into town to buy groceries, to buy for her to have a haircut, for her to go to the drugstore. He has to run some errands. He's driving. She's complaining to him, and he's having trouble. It's snowing. It's winter time. He's having trouble remembering what he's doing. He loves to imagine things. He imagines himself as driving a Navy hydroplane through bad weather. He imagines himself in a surgery room helping top-notch surgeons perform a surgery. He imagines himself in a law setting, a courtroom defending a beautiful lady, or being a witness for her. He imagines himself flying over enemy territory to take out an ammunition dump for the army. It's all in his head, okay? So this is the story of someone who just chooses to live in the imagination. You can describe those actual events very quickly to form a summary, a surface level summary. Just help the reader understand what the story was about on that basic level. Then once you do that, you have to ask yourself, what was this really about? All right? What was the message that Thurber was hinting at here? Now, it's pretty clear that, there is an idea of living in the imagination versus living in the real world. And living in the real world is hard. You are full of your faults. If you have these, especially if your body's slowing down. Mitty is an older gent. So you might want to compensate by just imagining yourself to be better than you are, so that you can have some confidence in yourself. So notice how the wife is always belittling him, treating him like a child. The wife is worried about his health and thinks that he is doing things he shouldn't be doing because of his health. He needs to calm down. He needs to rest, relax. So Mitty, this is a defense mechanism, isn't it? Can we see that as a defense mechanism in Mitty against his wife? Now, what exactly does it mean to have this sort of give and take between spouses? All right, when you marry someone, you become, in the eyes of the law, one with each other, and sometimes you find yourself involved in a very intertwining of soul and spirit, and this may be a picture of how Mitty is really struggling with the two identities he has. One that's full of this, hey, wake up, you're dying, you're sick, you can't remember, you're frustrating version of himself, versus this other macho hero that he has. All right. Now think also of the snow and the rain. Those are traditionally figures of the rain being one of renew or passage, cleansing the way. So he might be approaching an exiting and an entering here, namely his own death. Winter would be another sign of that. Just life shutting down. Now we also have signs that he's thinking about this too. The very last couple of episodes, he's imagining that he's going to fly over enemy territory to take out an enemy's position, and he knows this is it. He has to go alone. All right, and he probably won't return. It's too dangerous. He tells in his imagination the friend he's talking to, "Hey, we only live once, do we? Don't we? So I'm going to just go ahead, and it's my time. I'm going to go." You do have some of that death imagery in that last picture of his imagination, but there's one more, isn't there? When his wife goes into the drugstore, he sidles up to the wall, straightens himself up, takes a drag on the cigarette, and presents himself to an imaginary firing squad. Okay, so he's deciding when it's time for him to check out in this way. He decides to not put on the handkerchief. He's going to take one more drag on the cigarette, and he decides when to throw it away. And now he can't decide the fact that he's in front of a firing squad. This is the ultimate harshness of life. But at the end, is they're not going to. I'm inscrutable now. Mitty the inscrutable. They'll never get this, and he chooses to go out in that way. So, can you look at this on a deeper level as a narrative of how to deal with an impending death of an average day life? Because our own lives are very, very special to us. We will do anything to preserve them. For the most part, if we're, living along normal habits and strictures. So, if we're psychologically healthy, I think we can assume that all of us would try to avoid death. But what if it's approaching? It's really close. Might you not revert into a sort of an imaginary give and take, like a chess game with death? And couldn't that not be a sort of defense in itself? So whether I'm right or wrong, I think what I've just presented to you is a possible deeper level summary of the story, the main message of the story, the figurative message, the point underneath all of the surface events. If it's possible, I have a warrant to just hold it as my interpretation. Now, I would try to move it into the probable by bringing in signs and events from the stories to, better establish it as the interpretation. But as long as I provide a possible rendition of the deeper message, and then I try to work towards it that it's being probably the figurative message at play in Thurber's mind when he wrote it, I'm pretty well established. I've done what I need to do, and now I can move on to evaluate this story, which would be the third part of a level 2 critique.